Hi everyone, really nice to be here. I was having a look through the names and lots of new names, so it's really nice to see. I've got a few slides, and then Affy, you've got a few as well, haven't you, for Peterborough? Are those loaded up all right? I only see you, Affy. Can you see those? Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Fab. So I will go through these sort of at whatever pace we need. You know, people have sort of questions or comments, drop them in and we can cover it off. So just as a bit of an introduction to us at Outcomes Matter. So we support local authorities to explore and implement emerging tech, but really focused on that kind of improving outcomes for people. So not just doing kind of tech for tech's sake, but ensuring it's always got that kind of impact on the outcomes. And one of the other things that we have at Outcomes Matter is an online community, LGAI UK. I can send over to River and Sam a little link to that if people would be interested. It's a kind of online hub. It's got lots of resources, case studies, recordings from various meetings, etc., all around kind of AI in local government. So it might just be helpful for place for people to have a little look. So why AI in local authorities? I think this will be familiar to, you know, everyone on the call. This isn't going to be new news, but, you know, right across local authorities, we're being asked to do more with less. So we've got less resources, we've got more demand, and then particularly in adult social care, seeing that kind of increase in complexity of need as well, leading to overstretched workers, often quite hard to sort of recruit and retain specialists. And then add to that all of the kind of paperwork that colleagues have to contend with. And we're in a bit of a kind of challenging place. But I guess the good news is that lots of the kind of AI tools that are coming out can really help and really kind of shift that focus to being on higher value tasks. And I think, Affy, when you come on to the kind of Peterborough stuff, I think that's been like the real key, I think, for me, of sort of getting the practitioners doing the things that kind of like that match their expertise rather than just kind of chasing paperwork. But there are a few things that we kind of flag as being useful to, I guess, keep in mind when you're thinking about AI. So the 80-20 rule very much applies here. You know, it's great. It gives us a great head start, but actually AI can't do 100% of it. So that's where really that professional expertise, judgment, experience really comes in to kind of take it that last 20%. And the quote below is one that we've used, well, for over a year now, and it still feels really relevant. So it says, AI won't replace humans, but humans with AI will replace humans without AI. And I think that was just trying to recognise that there is a little bit of nervousness around kind of jobs and what might this mean for me. But if you think about the previous statement where it's kind of that 80-20, you know, there's always going to be that role and that need for the human. Human in the loop is the phrase that we use. And then the bottom two, again, I think you'll all really recognise, particularly because of the sort of types of services that we're all working in. So in a way that maybe some private sector or some corporate companies can just kind of crack on and use lots of these tools. Actually, because we've got lots of personal sensitive data, we need to be really careful about how we're kind of managing that. So lots of processes like your data protection agreements, data protection impact assessments, to really kind of make sure that we've got confidence in the security of that data. And then finally, ethics comes up quite a lot, and more from a way that people are, I guess, nervous about some of the ethics of using AI. But actually, we kind of flip that on its head a bit and see it as a real opportunity to kind of reduce biases, you know, bring in a level of kind of fairness, a level of consistency that maybe if you were kind of dealing with people, you wouldn't be able to see that bias, you know, that's sort of in somebody's head. So I think a real opportunity there to have some real positive influence. Am I right to keep walking through? Does that feel okay? Any questions? Yeah. So a bit of a list of what AI is good at. It's a little bit dry. I won't read through every word, but I'll just pull out some headlines. And we actually had a new one added on quite recently, which I thought was a really great reflection. So AI is very good at analysing big data sets, so both in terms of kind of historically, but also predictive analytics and kind of looking at the future. It's really good at helping us manage resources, and I guess particularly in adult social care, thinking about our kind of workforce and how they're kind of seeing people across the community. Can be really good for taking notes. I don't think my note taker I spotted was coming into the meeting, or lots of people may be using Copilot. I know Affy, you definitely are using Copilot at Peterborough, so really great to kind of produce that summary. Automating the repetitive tasks, and I'll come on to talk about that in a little bit more, but I guess there's lots of work that we do right across the public sector where we're pulling together a whole range of information and insight, and AI can be really helpful with that. The next one down, chatbots, I think really sort of give a good opportunity to enhance that interaction with people in communities, with the workforce, with providers. And then kind of linked to that, number 6, content generation. So AI is very good at creating pictures, stories. I've spoken to lots of charities who are kind of using it to help with some of their advertising and kind of content. And then what we've had a new one put on just recently, one of our LGAI community actually said she's been using it a lot to just support her personal learning and development. And I thought it was a really nice reflection. So been using things like Copilot or some of the kind of corporate tools that they've got in her local authority to really almost guide some of the practice. So when she's not sure of kind of what to do, she's using it as a bit of a coach. So a real opportunity there to kind of use it for your benefit, I guess. But there's an awful lot there, and I've been trying to kind of so much going on. And I've really tried to distill it down, I think, into these 3 chunks of kind of solutions, things that can make a difference. And Affy, in a moment, it'd be great to actually hear from you on some of these. I'll go a little bit more, but you can bring them to life a bit. So chatbots, I think, absolutely great. So, you know, they can be great for the internal team, so for staff, helping understand legislation, process, practice, how to kind of handle difficult situations, but also the same people in communities. So thinking about our adult social care directories, we always hear, you know, how vast they can be and how complex they can be for people to navigate. But actually being able to use a tool kind of in somebody's, you know, own language, in their own words, and just be able to find the information they need really makes a difference. Then we've got a bubble, which I'm calling sort of case management tools. So we've got, I don't know if there are many on the call that are using Magic Notes yet. It's by a company called Beam. I know Peterborough definitely are. It's one of my absolute favourites. I think it's a really, really wonderful tool, and we can come on to talk about that in a little bit more detail. But this one is great because what it does is it turns that kind of conversation and those case notes into the right format for the workers, so saving them an absolutely huge amount of time following their practice. And then we've got kind of similar, but more around our kind of report writing in our written documents. So we've got many tools that, many sort of processes where we're pulling together lots of information. So CHC applications, court reports, DOLS applications, all of that, where we're kind of bringing together that information. There are lots of other ways. There are sort of, you know, big significant investments, but these 3 really feel like they're the ones that, you know, would make a big difference and are deliverable. Oh, someone's just said they're no longer seeing slides. Is that just them? I can only see you, Affy. So maybe I'll just stop sharing and put them back up just in case it's played up.
Yeah, I think the slides are working for most.
Okay, fab. Cool. So what we've got on this slide, this one is a bit of a headache, don't worry, I will send it round afterwards. I was just trying to bring to life on one slide, kind of right across the adult social care journey, where are these opportunities? So I've kind of chunked them into those 3 areas that we had on the previous slide. And then we've got kind of opportunities for the workforce, for residents, and then for providers or kind of wider professionals. And I guess the point that I'm trying to land here is, right across that adult social care journey, from when we kind of enter in the community and the front door, all the way through to annual reviews, there's a real opportunity to utilise some of this tech to make a difference. I will send this over. It's probably far too small to read on the screen. So what I want to do now is probably shift to looking at some real examples. So we at Outcomes Matter have been involved in developing a whole range of things, but there are a few that we've been working with Peterborough on, and I thought that colleagues might find them interesting. So Affy, maybe, I don't know if it makes sense for me to kind of do a bit of an intro and then maybe hand to you. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, of course.
Fab. So number one, on that chatbots point. So Hey Geraldine is a chatbot that we have been developing with Peterborough colleagues. It's been an absolutely lovely piece of work. I think the response from the team involved, from the workforce, it's been so positive. So yeah, it's been a really great bit of work to get going. The whole point of the chatbot tool was to support the workforce around technology-enabled care and kind of digital solutions. And what historically was happening was colleagues would go to a member of the OT team called Geraldine about everything kind of tech. So any questions they had around what they should be considering, how they should be using that, where do they go, they would go to Geraldine. But Geraldine herself had her own caseload. So what we did was try to take all of that expertise, that insight, that wisdom, and really capture that within the chatbot. And so that's where kind of Hey Geraldine came from. And so Affy, I don't know whether it's worth kind of mentioning a bit about where we're at in Peterborough now, with kind of starting to roll that out and looking at getting it in teams.
Yeah, completely. Before we start, I think there was a lot of, I wouldn't say resistance, there was a lot of concern about what does this chatbot do. Staff who have been within the organisation for many years were quite sceptical in terms of what this potentially could mean. So at the beginning, what that came up with wasn't particularly that smart. It had its issues, but over the time we worked with Outcome Matters in getting it right, to the point where actually people believe the chatbot is in fact Geraldine. Certainly we are seeing quite significant returning capacity from the occupational therapy team, and Geraldine is actually on leave at the moment, and actually majority of those calls have been that Geraldine would have received, which is just usually about queries about what tech to use. It's been fielded by Geraldine, the chatbot, which is amazing. Okay. Can people hear me okay?
It's a little bit in and out, Affy. I can keep up, but it's sort of dipping occasionally.
Okay. So yeah, it's one of those things that has been a real success for Peterborough. Certainly we are at the point of looking at phase 2, so we're just in the process of signing all the contracts and going through their procurement in order to push through Geraldine within teams, and that's going to mean that we are able to embed that within existing technology rather than people having to go into a web browser, so it becomes part of their work. I'm going to stop now in case I need to come back out and come back in so that people can hear me.
Cool. Thank you, Affy. That's really great. And I think Affy's point around kind of where we're at now with the tool. So I'm just going to see what I've got on the next slide because it might be helpful actually. Yeah. So as Affy mentioned, the tool was kind of developed over a really short period of time. So this is just kind of an example timeline. It wasn't exactly like this, but near enough. So at the kind of right at the start, there was a period of gathering lots of information and sort of pulling that all together. And then kind of ending up with the version 1 tool, which I think, as Affy said, when we first started, the tool was not great, in all honesty. It was, we needed to go through that process of refining the content, seeing what was in there. It was also really interesting because doing this process where we were seeing our testers regularly, hearing feedback, we could find out if there were bits of information that were maybe historical bits that we needed to remove. And we could really kind of test and refine how it was responding. I think the thing that we were really pleased about is just in this kind of 6-week period, we were able to get the tool from being quite static, sort of, you know, tell me about a smart speaker, that kind of thing, to much more people able to describe their context, their situation. So I'm going to see a woman in her 60s who keeps sort of forgetting to shut the fridge, what might help? So being able to kind of contextualize the tool, and that was the bit we were really pleased about. And then, as Affy said, we've kind of got the tool responding so well that actually one of Geraldine's colleagues thought it was her responding and said to her, "You reply very quickly," because she thought it was her typing the answer in each time. So we thought that was gold star, seal of approval there, that the chatbot was doing what we wanted it to. So I maybe come on to it at the end. We've got a little bit of a demo that we could do, but it's probably easier just to stay on slides for now. But here's what it kind of looks like at the moment. So it looks quite familiar in terms of a chatbot. But as Affy said, we're now thinking about how do we integrate that? And in Peterborough, we're looking at Microsoft Teams because the workforce often speak to Geraldine via Teams anyway. They ask that question. As Affy said, it's not creating an extra step. So really trying to make it as easy for people as possible. I'm just going to quickly stop sharing and just load up an image from elsewhere a moment, because the other thing that is really nice in the back of the dashboard, in the back of the tool, there's some really great dashboard settings that means that we can kind of see the impact of the tool and get some great learning. Bear with. So I've got 2 different screenshots that I was going to share here. So this is one, it was from ages, like a while ago when we were testing the tool. But what the tool has got, it's almost got its own AI functionality built in within it as well. And it starts to give you these smart suggestions. So if, you know, sort of colleagues were asking about a particular thing, but you maybe didn't have the answers, it would start to guide you on, you know, these are the sorts of things you should include to address the queries that you're getting. And I think the next one is this one. So this is very high level. You can click into all of this in the dashboard. This is just a screenshot, unfortunately. But what this screen shows is what's that overall percentage that have been able to be resolved and the customer satisfaction rating. We've got how many kind of conversations. And the thing that we found really helpful for Peterborough is them being able to attribute that to a time saving. So Geraldine said she thought it was maybe about 15 minutes a conversation. So you can kind of put that in. And then the leads is capturing the email addresses. So to kind of make that real, if a worker is sort of asking information on the chatbot, but maybe still doesn't quite get to where they need to, that transcript can be sent off to Geraldine and her colleagues, and they can kind of review that and have that conversation. So that sort of talks about that. I think that's probably enough on chatbots. I'll keep whizzing through. So the next tool I wanted to mention was one called Magic Notes. So this has been developed by a company called Beam. People might know them. They actually provide homelessness sort of casework is their bread and butter. And they developed Magic Notes to support their oh, I've just seen a good question, actually. I'll just finish this and then I'll come back to the question. So with this tool, it's actually been very much geared up around supporting adult social workers to record and transcribe their conversations, and then using generative AI to create that kind of bespoke custom summary that's in the right format, in the right kind of language, etc. So Magic Notes has been being piloted for about just over a year now in different local authorities, and they are now rolling out in lots of different places as well. I'm going to quickly answer the question, and then Affy, if I maybe come to you to say about Magic Notes in Peterborough. So actually this question about Geraldine, so someone said, where does accountability sit? For example, if Geraldine doesn't give the right advice and the worker misses an important action. And I think so there's a few things around that. So I think one, this is why we kind of always need to describe that human in the loop part. So actually, where does the person come in? You know, it's not decision making, it is guiding you. I guess just seeing it as like another tool in the toolkit. So they could, you know, they could be Googling it and trying to find that information. But then also the actual information within the tool itself. What we've done is Geraldine and her colleague Megan, they've kind of got that overview of the content and the ability to kind of refine and adjust that so that we can kind of keep that information up to date. And the other thing that I think is probably relevant to mention here is that with all of these tools now, you can kind of almost give them instructions about how to prioritize things. So in Peterborough, they apply a tech-first approach. So what we've done is kind of made sure that responses kind of reflect that, and that you get those kind of least intrusive and tech sort of examples first, and then kind of flowing through. So I think, yeah, very important point. It's not decision making. It is very much a tool and there to guide it. Cool. Affy, just jumping back to Magic Notes then, I don't know whether you would mind just sharing a little bit about what we've been up to in Peterborough and then how it's sort of going to be shifting quite a bit in this next phase.
Yeah, can people hear me okay?
I can right
Am
now.
I sounding all right? Camera off, so we'll try that for now. So, so Magic Notes has been really interesting in the sense of, you know, capacity is a massive premium, and certainly speaking as a social worker, I didn't get trained in social work in order to feed a data information system, which now becomes a really important part of our work. So Magic Notes, being able to transcribe an assessment live whilst it's happening, and for it to produce something that aligns itself to the headings of your assessment is a bit of a game changer. There's still issues with regards to the sound then. Is it still intermittent? All right, Emma?
I can keep up, but it does keep dropping out a little bit, but it's fine, Affy, and I can cover anything in my bit again. So I guess maybe keep going. And
so where we are at the moment is we tested out Beams with adult early help, our first port of call into adult social care. There were some issues with regards to the connectivity of our telephony system with Beams, but we quickly worked with Beams and Outcome Matters in order to resolve that. So we're now at the point where we are looking to expand Beams across the whole of adult social care, particularly focusing on occupational therapy, reviews and transitions, particularly where there are waiting lists and where we need to be able to undertake those assessments really quickly. We are also looking at expanding the use wherever there's a structured assessment. So we're working with Beams and Outcome Matters to look at the possibility of using Magic Notes within children's and within housing and homelessness, particularly where there's high cost in terms of agency usage and increasing the capacity wherever possible. Our staff are really selling this to each other. So we're not having to convince people that Magic Notes is the right thing to do. Staff are telling each other it's the right thing to do. So I'm going to stop there just in case people aren't capturing what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant, Affy. And I think your final point around kind of staff buy-in with these kind of tools, I guess, well, the same with the chatbot, but the impact is so significant and it makes such a kind of difference that people just love it. I remember one team member was like, if you take this away from me, I am leaving. So they literally, like, it makes such a difference. I'm just reading the comments. So are there any key issues you've encountered with Magic Notes that you've had to overcome to make the most of it? So Affy, I'll maybe respond, and if there's anything to add, jump in. My gut would be that there was the technical bit that Affy described. So because lots of these tools, sort of AI tools, are new, I guess the teams of developers really appreciate and like sort of all the feedback. So one of the things that we found in Peterborough was this, how does it connect with the telephony system? And so the developers there have been sort of working really hard to kind of overcome that. And I think the learning, I guess, is relevant for kind of everywhere. Then what we've kind of been really keen to do at Outcomes Matter is bring those caseworkers together regularly for a period of time in sort of huddles to share kind of feedback, questions, comments, etc. Really have that space to kind of think and learn. The point around transition. So yeah, we are early days of that. I think in Peterborough, I mean, again, probably the same, but recognition actually that transitions sort of space can be quite complex, you know, lots going on, children's workers, maybe adults workers, and maybe having a tool like this, giving those workers a bit more headspace to kind of really focus on that. So we'll be sharing updates. Affy, I'm sure there'll be some sort of little case studies written up about how it's working in transition. So we can make sure that we share via River and Sam if that's helpful, if people are keen to keep hearing. Fab. I think the other thing I was going to say is we've actually spent some time with the workers kind of trying to understand like, yes, the time saving's great, but what does that mean in reality? You know, is that you're able to do more tasks? Is it you're able to have a more in-depth conversation? Is it you're able to, I don't know, respond to things more quickly, that sort of stuff, and a whole range of things coming up. But kind of to Affy's point, people really highlighting they'd be able to, you know, work with more people or have much more kind of in-depth, strengths-based, you know, research-based practice. So both of those are real positive. Cool. I will keep whizzing through. So on this slide, I've got a couple of different things. We're quite early days with CHC+, but I thought colleagues would probably find it interesting still, and I can maybe use our work on EHCP+ to bring it to life. So EHCP+ is our generative AI tool that creates a first draft education, health and care plan. So I guess quite similar in a way to the Beam Magic Notes tool in terms of populating that kind of statutory template, those kind of required plans. But rather than using the live transcription from the casework and the conversation, it's using that whole range of information. So you know, you might be able to pull together an assessment, I don't know, care records, information from different partners, providers, etc. So EHCP Plus creates the first draft education, health and care plan. I guess if we were looking for an equivalent in adult social care, maybe it would be our care and support plans, or our continuing healthcare checklists, those kind of things. But the tools are very easy. So they are kind of drag and drop, upload your documents, click a kind of button and it processes those. And what it does is it kind of will read through all of the documents, categorize and chunk all of the information within those, and then map those chunks of information to where they need to be within the kind of the template, the plan, the form. It will generate each section, and then the worker kind of refines that at the end. So back to that kind of 80-20 rule. What we've got here is just a little screenshot output of that. So building on EHCP Plus, which we're now rolling out across the country, we've launched CHC Plus. So what it does is uses generative AI to produce that first draft checklist against each of the 12 domain areas of need. I guess the logic there's a couple of things. So some places people do spend quite a bit of time on creating checklists, and you know, can immediately see the time that could save. But also what we've heard quite a lot is actually the ability to demonstrate and evidence needs in the checklists. That's the bit where actually sometimes as social care staff, you know, we're not the best place to, or don't necessarily have the skills or the knowledge about exactly what our health colleagues are kind of looking for. So if we've got a tool that can really help us extract that stuff, you know, and get it in the best state possible, then that's really helpful. What I thought just show you on this slide is what that would look like in reality. So the worker would input all of those kind of documents that they would use to, you know, inform their thinking. Then the CHC Plus tool would create the draft in this bottom box here, that brief description of need. The worker would check that. And then I think this, for me, feels like, you know, exactly a great use, because the worker can then focus their time on that professional judgment. So what is the, you know, that sort of rating that we would expect. If you see in this bottom box here, there has been a bit of debate about, you know, whether the tool should come up with a suggested rating, and we said, like, maybe in future, but actually right now it's probably very early days. You wouldn't want it sort of doing that decision making, but there could be a time where you've got enough insight, evidence, confidence behind it that it could do that as well. So I think and I guess the logic there then is that with using some of these tools, we've got a better and more consistent articulation of need. We've got the time saving on creating the plan. We'd have increased acceptance rates, hopefully because of that stronger evidence, lower spending. And then I think one that feels like a real positive to me is this bit around improved relationships. So actually sort of mitigating some of that conflict and that time, I guess, that is spent sort of, you know, creating those. I've seen there have been a few questions actually in the chat about CHC Plus. So can we get the AI to categorize information into the categories headers we want? Yeah, absolutely. So that applies for Magic Notes and for tools like this. So that's exactly the process you would go through for both. You would kind of share your templates that you use, the headings, your processes, policies, all of that kind of local information. And then that kind of informs the tools. They call them reference documents that sort of sit behind. So yeah, absolutely on that one. The question around the positive impact on the number of cases, So that's absolutely the intention. We are very early days with this and just sort of gathering our pioneer group that will be in the early stages of piloting the tool. So again, I can make sure River and Sam have maybe got a few notes that could be whizzed around on that, but we can keep sharing. The other thing that we are a bit further along is the EHCP one, which I know isn't relevant for this group, but there might just be some sort of high level insights and learning that draw across. So yeah, we can just make sure people have got some updates on that. Fab, I might keep going through. So I just wanted to end with a bit of a recognition to Peterborough colleagues. So at Outcomes Matter, because we are very much focused on AI and emerging tech, I guess that's sort of what we see. And there is lots of dialogue going on, right across the sector around this stuff and how it can really make a difference. But the thing that I have found really positive is that Peterborough have almost been very conscious about seeing this new tech as a really big part of their kind of solution, and have actually made some quite significant investments, decisions, commitments from the leadership team right through to really kind of think about what is the role of these solutions, both for residents and for the workforce. And so, and it's not saying this isn't happening anywhere, but like personally, I think have noted, some local authorities using maybe specific sort of individual tools, but it feels quite comprehensive in Peterborough and really kind of trying out lots of different stuff. So the chatbots, the synthesizing, the sort of magic notes, capturing the conversations. So yeah, just a bit of a recognition there to Peterborough that I think you're doing some really great stuff. And then I can see, again, there's been a couple of questions about return on investment. So Affy, yeah, it's exactly what you've been looking at kind of now, isn't it, with all of this stuff? So gone into quite a bit of detail. And then AI policy, Affy, just remind me, I know that there had been some sort of headlines shared, but I can't remember the latest, unfortunately.
Yeah, hopefully is it better in terms of sound?
Yeah, that did sound a bit better, actually.
So there's been a lot of work around having a special AI information governance board as part of the data governance board. So we're expanding that not only in terms of internally to Peterborough, but also with our colleagues within health. We're all having the same conversation about what does AI and emerging technology mean in terms of ethics and data governance. So there's loads of conversation there. And also we've started up an AI practitioner professionals group to look at quality, to look at practice, to look at what does AI mean in terms of staff and their staff practice and also their welfare, because there's a lot of concern about, AI is coming and it's going to take our jobs. We are quickly resolving all of that, and it's all about increasing capacity and giving people the work-life balance as well. Staff are saying they're not having to work until 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the evening, because they are able to deliver their work within their working hours. And that was one of the unexpected benefits of having AI and supporting staff within a landscape where staff are leaving the industry in droves. We need to protect them as much as possible.
I think, Affy, that point around, so, managers have been using the tools for supervision so that they can really focus on that kind of conversation with the practitioner. People really like embracing it, I guess. The thing I've just put in the chat was around quality assurance. So we're not there just yet, but I think it very soon, as in within the next couple of weeks, we'll have some tools ready that can do all of your quality assurance audits. So we've been speaking to Peterborough, but lots of other places too. I guess all of your kind of quality practice frameworks, all of the QA processes you use, they're another really great example for AI, because what you can essentially do, yes, you need to make sure that it's secure, the system that you're using, But you can essentially put in, you know, here's my assessment, adult social care assessment that we would like to quality assure. Here's the framework that we use. Can you do the audit for me? So essentially you get the audit done with your, you know, bullet point recommendations, and then it suddenly means that those workers who would have spent their time auditing all of those stuff can instead focus their time on implementing the recommendations, supporting the practice development, really kind of, you know, doing the stuff that makes a difference. So that's another great one that we've kind of got pretty much ready to go. I've seen there's another, yeah, some other comments have gone in. Maybe are they just sort of a bit more general questions that have dropped in? Sorry, my screen keeps disappearing. Right, sorry, I've just seen the question around front door. So I think that's an absolutely great question. I have personally done quite a lot of thinking about this because I have done lots of practice work myself at the front door, and it's a place that I think is so important and you can have such a difference. I have seen sort of big technology providers selling sort of like big, you know, front door solutions. So not just adult social care, you know, across the whole of everything. And my take on it is it's probably just a bit too big, like it's a bit too far and a bit too much of a stretch, and you sort of wouldn't have the confidence around it. So for me, there's something about using some of those tools like the chatbots to support the workforce at the front door to maybe navigate that conversation, or to support residents to kind of understand what is out there with in terms of like directory stuff. So yeah, more using it to kind of guide, less so around that kind of decision making and kind of automating pathways, if that makes sense. I think there are organisations that are kind of doing big whole shebang everything, but my personal take is it would be better to sort of start small. So we also use a phrase, dream big, start small. So just being conscious of like not trying to boil the ocean, not trying to do too much at once, and just being quite considered. Risk predictor, I think, is a great one. So we've been having some conversation in children's services about how you can, or like, can you like model and can you predict when a child may become looked after, for example? And I guess what we're kind of looking at is like, yes, it's possible, but actually trying to understand, is it more helpful than a practitioner's view? So in those cases, you know, a children's social worker would probably be the best judgment of whether a child will become looked after or not. So in that case, do you need that kind of model? And so I think yes, absolutely can use it for risk prediction, but I suppose it's just thinking about what are all the factors that you're bringing in and the confidentiality point exactly.
Emma, just conscious of time here, should we save some of the questions for afterwards and hop onto Affy's slides quickly, just so we can get through them? Obviously, any questions that we do run out of time today, we can take away to you, because it seems like we've got a lot coming in and just want to make sure that Affy can get through his piece as well.
Yeah, all good. I was just thinking, I think the others, they're probably quite specific, so it's fine, we can pick up in the chat.
Perfect. Thanks, Emma.
So I'm sharing my slides now. Can everyone see them? Yeah. So I've only got a few slides, so I can whistle through these in probably about 5 minutes. So the journey for Peterborough didn't start with the question of, can we use AI? It started with a whole range of challenges, demands, priorities that really forced us to look at what we were doing, how we were doing it. Are we making best use of our collective resources? So we didn't start this journey thinking, actually, we know emerging technology will help us this. How can we use it within the organization? We started by really identifying what our problems were. And everyone's in this similar situation where resources are reducing and demand is increasing. our staff capacity is also reducing. So it's about how do you continuously make best use of those collective resources. On top of that was the whole thing around CQC, working with health, constant improvement. So it's about, we are within challenging times and we need to sort of embrace technology, otherwise you're going to sink. And that was the message that we really told ourselves, in terms of actually we need to find different ways of meeting our challenges and demand. Also, staff were telling us that they weren't, majority of staff said they had the tools to do their job, but actually there was a high majority of people who didn't feel that they had the right tools to do their job. More staff were feeling like they had to do more with less, and also the feeling of constant pressure. So our staff are telling us that we needed to pivot and change as well. And apart from us doing the same things, this was an opportunity to really look at how we could utilize emerging technology. I can't quite see that. So we started with a vision about how we want to utilize technology. So it was about going on that journey of innovation, but we didn't have the expertise of how to harness technology, because it is quite it is overwhelming. There are so many solutions out there, so where do you start? So it was fortuitous that we got a hospital discharge grant from our ICBs to help us spearhead a lot of that tech, and our commissioner identified Outcome Matters to be able to deliver that. So we're on that journey with Outcome Matters in terms of really looking at what our problems are and matching the right solution to the right problem. I'm whistling through this so we get some opportunities to ask questions. So the program of work consisted of 4 work streams. So work stream 1 was about self-service. There was work stream around automation and AI. The other one was about better use of our assistive technology, because within Peterborough, we weren't utilising our assistive technology in a way that really helped people remain independent. So that's where we started. We knew that we needed to increase our assistive technology uptake, and also making sure that our staff were able to keep abreast of all the new emerging technology that can keep people independent was really critical. Staff didn't know what was out there, so we started with, okay, we're going to get the biggest bang for our buck by increasing the usage of assistive technology and reducing the over-reliance on costly care packages. So that was the beginning of looking at what solutions were out there. And then through that grew a whole range of other things that we started exploring. And then part of that was looking at that data. How are we using our data more effectively to identify not only what we're spending our money on, but also identifying needs before they happen. So that whole thing around data, predictive analytics, we're on that journey as well, and we're really focusing on falls and frailty. We've developed an initial model with Outcome Matters, utilizing publicly available data, and it's already proving that it's identifying patterns and themes and types of people that we need to target our collective resources with health in order to prevent them having further risk and harm further down the line. So it's in its initial stages at the moment, and I would say actually that utilizing your data can help us identify risk and harm. You do need to be careful about data governance, and actually there's so much you can do with the data that you do have that's not identifiable. So we are in the process of looking at phase 2 of bringing in that public health and adult social care data into the model to see whether we can identify demand and need before it happens. The next slide shows you a whole range of things that we're doing. It's very tongue-in-cheek in saying it's a simple slide. It's not a simple slide, but it gives you an idea. We are doing a hell of a lot when it comes to tech, data and AI. So we're not just working with outcome matters, but we are looking at a whole range of things in order to modernize what we're doing, not only about how we how we manage demand, how we make best use of our resources, but how we enable our workforce and also people to remain independent in the community. So there's a whole range of things, and it's really ambitious. So this program of work is not over the next year, but also over the next 3 years. So we're having to phase a lot of it in order to be able to deliver a lot of this, but we are in delivery for a hell of a lot of what we set out to do. So we're in the process of actually being one of the stars of Peterborough City Council. So we're starting to look at how else can we utilize this across the council as a whole, not just within Peterborough, and also working with our health colleagues. So where we're at the point of evaluating everything that's happened in phase 2 and moving on to phase 1, and we're moving on to phase 2. So we're just in the process. We should be able to finalize everything this week, and we'll be going on to this next stage, which is about expanding and scaling up all the new technology that we started with, but also looking at how else can we utilize it. So I might have mentioned around Magic Notes, about there's a real interest about how else can you use Magic Notes across the council wherever there's a structured assessment. So there's a whole load of things that we want to look at. Also, how are you better utilize technology like Hey Geraldine, but do it publicly facing rather than just internal. So we're on that journey. And it's an exciting journey, but I think it's one of those things of you have to do this. We don't have a choice, and being able to get on this journey as soon as possible becomes really critical for the survival of most local authorities. I'm going to stop there. How do I stop sharing? Now I can't stop sharing. All right, we'll just ask questions.
We're here forever.
Thank you so much, Emma and Affy, for that. That was brilliant. Really, really good presentation, and clearly, but from the chat, there's so much engagement. Emma, I can see that you've obviously been answering a lot of the questions in the chat, which has been really helpful. Is there any that I've dropped you a message with some of them? Are there any that you'd like to quickly go over now, or would you like to take them away and come back on that? Because as I said, we can send them around afterwards when we send through the recap of this event.
Yeah, I think I've tried to answer as we go for most of them. I'll make sure that there is a written response to every question as well, so that everybody's definitely got theirs answered. But I think just the one thing I did want to mention, someone had said about sort of trying the bit around trying to get the workforce sort of engaged and excited about the tools. And I think once you're on that journey and people have started using them, as Affy said, honestly, I honestly think it will just grow and it will happen because they are so great. The difference that a lots of, the chatbots, the Magic Notes, the sort of EHCP Plus, they make such a difference. And so I think it's about really trying to build that positive energy. Affy, we did quite a lot of engagement sessions, didn't we, at the start? Lots of comms. We did videos rather than I remember when we started our piece of work, rather than just sending an email comms, I did a little bit of a video. So I was just trying to think about how can we build that interest and that energy so that people will positively engage, because once they've got started, everyone loves it, don't they, Affy?
Yeah, I would say, so back to that slide where staff were saying they don't have the tools to do their job. By the end of it, staff are selling it themselves. They're able to really share it amongst colleagues. So the staff who were very skeptical at the beginning, when you talked about AI, they sat at the other end of the meeting room with arms folded. They're the ones who are embracing it. So I suppose it's about starting with those biggest challenges that face the workforce. And then if you're able to engage them in a positive way, they're the ones who are going to sell it across the teams.
Brilliant. Great. Well, look, I think everyone will join me in thanking Emma and Affy for their time today. It's been a really insightful session. Thank you all as well for attending. We appreciate it takes time out of all of your busy days. So thank you for doing that. If you do have any future topics that you'd like to discuss or any follow-up questions for Affy or Emma, please get in touch with us. Our details are widely spread, but should be in the chat also. Thank you very much for your time today, and I hope you all have a good day.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Thanks, everyone.